Hello, and welcome to Chromaticraft. What is Chromaticraft, you might ask? What a fantastic question, and you are watching just the right video. Chromaticraft is a light-based magic mod created by Rika, the creator of some of the craziest mods I've ever played: Rotarycraft, Reactorcraft, and Electrocraft. This is a mod that allows you to harness the power of the colored pylons you see dotted around the landscape and use them to create tools and upgrade yourself. So let's get started. The first thing that is going to happen when you spawn in the world is you should spawn with a Chromaticraft notebook. This is the gray notebook I have in my right hand right now. As you can see, when we right click to open it, it is quite bare. Only one entry telling us to essentially gather more entries. There are two ways to do that currently in Chromaticraft. You can either have a pylon kill intelligent beings, which means set up a villager, witch, or player farm because it is rare, or find them in dungeon loot. Luckily, I've already gone underground and brought some dungeon loot back up here for us to take a look at. Hey, look here, we've got a fragment. So what do we do with it? Shift right click the book in your hand to open the binder and stick the page right in. As you can see, one page done and 99 to go. There are quite a few pages dotted around, so it will take a long time for you to find them all. To speed things up a little bit, I'm going to cheat in a few fragments myself. Now that the book is fully filled, let's take a look at it. Using the arrow keys, we can scroll around the book looking at all the entries. Most entries fall under similar categories, with a few falling under categories specific to that subgroup. For example, almost every category has a basic entry, as well as a basic crafting entry and a rune crafting entry. Now when you click on any object within the book, it gives you a short overview of what the object is and or does. Now there are some quite powerful things in here, but we can't just jump straight to the aptly marked endgame items, even if we wanted to. There are a few reasons for that. There's a gating system within Chromaticraft that you absolutely need to follow. Even if you know the recipe, you won't have the option to craft these things, much like how any other mod would work. As you are working your way through the mod, you will find certain items require materials you may not have. These materials will become available to you as you progress through the mod. If you click on the tab on the right, you will see a bunch of portraits, and if you click on them, it gives you a question with a little bit of randomized text. These are your hints as to what to do, and you need to follow through on them to progress through the mod. Don't forget to scroll to the right with the arrow keys to view all of the progression entries. As we progress through the mod, things that weren't apparent to us will become apparent. For example, if we look around, we can see certain things: grass, trees, and so on. But if I progress through the progression tab a little, by looking at a nearby pylon, you'll see that 1, this portrait has filled the rest of the information in, 2, that I have the ability to progress to the next portrait that this one was connected to, and 3, that more objects have revealed themselves to me. If we get up close to it, you'll see a text box appear on the right hand side giving us an overview of what the object is, and if I break it while in survival mode, it will drop its materials for me. This is one of the many World Gen items around the world, and while there are more hidden, I will leave the rest for you to find. Not only are there plants to find, but even some of the stone that was previously plain will reveal its magic materials to you. There is also other world gem that you can find right off the bat. This includes these crystals, which some of you may have recognized from Geostrata, as well as trees from the mod Die Trees. Both of these have been absorbed into Chromaticraft. The trees can be found dotted around the landscape and in what is called a rainbow forest, where you can also find the rare and magical rainbow tree. The die trees and rainbow trees can have the wood of any wood in the game, including mod woods, and will act accordingly as a tree of that kind. For example, an oak die tree will drop apples. The die tree will drop their respective dies, of course, which can provide you with some fantastic sources of lapis, bone meal, and ink sacs, among others. The trees will also drop chroma berries. I'll go more into those later. The rainbow tree, you guessed it, drops all the dies of the rainbow, but also has a chance of dropping golden apples and cleaning up paint from Thaumcraft. Now if we look into the normal pages again, you may have noticed that there are no crafting recipes. To view the recipes for something, simply click on the recipe tab and click on the object that you want to craft. You'll notice some have different icons when you click on the recipe tab, and the reason for that is because not everything is crafted in your vanilla crafting bench. In fact, few things are. There's a casting table that you are going to want to make as soon as you can. If we look at the recipe for the casting table, wait, what are those? Crystal shards? Yep, but no worries, they're quite easy to find. Other than finding them in dungeon chests and village chests, you can find them easily underground, as well as in the nether. However, these crystals all have magical effects that they provide to those in a radius around them, and the corrupting nature of the nether will turn the crystal bad towards you. You can, however, break them and still receive the normal crystals, so don't worry about that. Let's get our hands on some. Now that we've broken some crystals and we have some shards, we can make a casting table. The other thing we are going to want to make is the elemental manipulator. This is quite easy as well. It only takes 2 sticks and any colored shard in a normal crafting bench. Now that we have our 2 objects, what can we do with them? Well, let's place the casting table down and find out. As you can see, there are no vanilla recipes that work in the casting table. So what can we craft with it? Well, Chromaticraft things. Let's craft one. The first thing we are going to craft is a chromatic flower. For now, they are only decorative, although they look pretty nifty. If we look in the book for the recipe, we see that it needs glowstone leaves, a flower, and a shard. If we place all of this into the crafting table, we have our object show up in the top right corner. However, I am unable to pull the item out. Why might that be? Well, give it a whack with your elemental manipulator, and there you go. Now you can take the item out. Do you remember how I mentioned that some items cannot be crafted even if you know the recipes? Well, the reason that might be is because you haven't leveled up your casting table enough. Now currently there is no GUI-based queue telling you the level of your casting table, but there is a way to know if it is leveled up or not. If I just take all of the rest of my materials and place them in the table to create another 60 odd flowers and then I wand it, did you hear that? How this chime was different from the last one? Let me play them side by side for you. So when you hear that sound, that means you have leveled up your casting table a tier. There are 4 tiers, tiers 0 through 3. As you level up the casting table, you gain access to more recipes. Now that we are at the next tier, let's craft something else, say this item casting stand. If we open the recipe for the item casting stand, it looks pretty straightforward, until we tab over, at which point we are presented with a page we haven't seen before. This is the rune page, and it will show you the placement of the runes you need to craft this object. Now, we can't just go placing runes down willy-nilly for our next crafting operation. We will need to make a structure. If we scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see that we have quite a few structures that can be crafted. Some of these, like the first 3 in the pylon later down the line, are things that you find in the wild and are not something that you craft yourself. However, if you would like to view them so you know what to keep an eye out for, here it is. However, you are trying to make something, and those from this one and on to the right are all things you will need to build. The first one is the casting room. Let's get on building that. Building the structure is quite simple, but later on they become a bit more complicated. To keep track of how to build these structures, you can view the structure in the book in both 3D mode, which I find helpful for comparisons after I've built it, and 2D top-down mode, which provides a layer-by-layer representation. Most of the structures are built with the same few blocks, which can all be found under the resources, basic crafting, crystal stone entry. So we built our structure to the book's specifications. We put coal blocks in the corners, we put the right blocks in the right places, and we have our casting table in the center. What do we do now? We create our crystal runes and place them down. First we need purple, and then we need black. Once we've crafted these, we need to put them down according to the book. Looking at the entry in the book, it says they go 3 out and 2 over at a Y level of 0. Assuming the crafting table is Y level 0 and the up direction in the book is north in the world, they go here, 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 and here. If we place all of our materials in the table, we have the option to craft a stand. We will need quite a few of these stands for the next tier, so for automation, let's place a chest next to the table. So if we wander the table and take a step back, we get to see quite a light show. Now you may have noticed that we are using crystals quite often, and you might be keeping them in their whole state by picking them up with Silk Touch for recipes and to keep the positive potion effects. In the later game, you may have quite the amount of shards, but you're going to want to find some way to supplement your crystal supply. For that, you can make some crystal seeds. Quite simple, only requiring 4 crystals of the colors you are trying to make, as well as some seeds. These will plant anywhere and take a while to grow, but when they are grown, you can right-click them for a chance at a crystal. Once you set up a whole automated farm of these, you should be rolling in the crystals, metaphorically speaking. Another thing we should do before we delve into the next level of crafting is find all the pylons, one of every color. Right now, they don't offer us much, but once you get to that level of complexity, it is useful to have access to them all. For that, you can craft a pylon compass, quite a simple procedure, and it will point you to the nearest pylons. Looking around, we are not near very many, and they are definitely not right next to us. It would have been more efficient for me to build these structures near to these pylons, but unfortunately I didn't have that forethought. We will have to build repeaters to get the power to reach over here, but we will work on that in a bit. So now that we have crafted all of our item casting stands, let's build the next structure, which is quite similar to the previous one, and add in the casting stands. As you can see, I already took it upon myself to build one of those. Note that the casting stands on the outer rings are 1 block up, and the inner ring is level with the casting table. Speaking of, if we right-click on our casting table, it looks quite different. We now have access to a 5x5 crafting grid, which is much bigger than before. We should take advantage and craft something. Now, I haven't yet mentioned Chroma, which is the magical liquid essence of experience, and you need it to build a certain few structures. Making the Chroma collector is easy, but we're going to need somewhere to store it. Luckily, there's a tank in Chromaticraft, and the tank blocks can be crafted with this setup, so let's craft it. It only takes some glass and a diamond. It doesn't even take any runes. We'll make a couple of those, and then we'll need to make the tank controller as well. Uh-oh, it seems we will have an issue though. The tank controller needs some power, as well as some new resources we haven't seen before. The resources are easy enough. They are in an entry lower down in the book. Our setup isn't powerful enough to harness the colors yet, so let's upgrade our building and look around on how to get some power. So as you can see, I am now and have been on a flat map world for a few minutes, and that is so I can find pylons a bit easier. Using our previously crafted pylon compass, let's look for the colors that we need. If we look at the book, we need Kuro and Videli. I've already found Videli and set up a path, but we need Kuro as well. Luckily, there is one right there, but it is a touch too far away to use. How can we get that power from there to here? We can use repeaters. Repeaters are pretty easy to build, but they need a crystal repeater block, which is slightly expensive. It needs a crystal core, which takes a lot of crafting steps to complete, and also needs boosted Tahara crystal shards. How do we boost our crystal shards? Well, do you remember how dye trees drop their respective colored chroma berry? If you drop those chroma berries into a pool of chroma, which can be piped or bucketed out of a chroma collector, the pool will gain the aspect of that color, and when it has reached its max saturation, you can boost a shard of that respective color as well. It takes a little bit of time, but for now, I'll just cheat some in. So now that we have our crystal repeater blocks, some Kuro runes, which by the way can be made more efficiently if you use boosted crystal shards instead of normal shards, and some plain crystallized blocks, we can build our repeaters. Let's go over to the Kuro pylon and start dropping them down. 2 plain blocks, a rune, and a repeater, and that's it. Do note that they have a range of 32 blocks, or 2 chunks. Each repeater lowers the amount of power that is getting transmitted, so be careful. So now that we have our finished path and our advanced casting complex, we can make our crystal tank controller. If we give it a click with our wand, ta-da! Now that you understand the crafting and the power transmitting, Let's go over what some of the blocks do, as there are quite a few and the in-game documentation is pretty explanatory. Most are pretty clear from their names, but some aren't immediately obvious. A crystal brewery, for example, does not brew crystals, but instead brews potions using crystals. A much easier way to get your potions. Using a boosted crystal will boost the power of the potion. A heat lily acts like a torch with a much wider range, melting ice and snow. A chromatic enchanter allows you to use the power of colors to enchant more accurately. Moving on, a guardian stone is quite useful, allowing you to protect a 16 by 16 area on a multiplayer server, allowing only those on the whitelist to break blocks in its radius. A world rift allows you to transport items, fluids, and redstone signals through linked blocks, but it does need pipes. Looking at the end game items, we have the very powerful and very expensive tile accelerator, similar to Darkcraft's time torches in its tile accelerating abilities, but with a few marked differences. It only works on blocks directly adjacent, it does not affect plants, and it won't cause more than 1 millisecond of lag, a very relieving fact to many server admins, since they can't be disabled. We also have the luminescent battery. By itself, it doesn't do much, but if you build a lumen tree and place the battery on top, leaves of power will begin growing, allowing you to drain directly from the leaves instead of the dangerous pylons themselves. Of course, there's more to explore, but I will leave the rest up to you for you to learn yourself, as a lot of the fun of the mod comes from playing around with it and exploring. However, there is one more big piece of the mod that I have not covered yet, and that is abilities. Abilities are built-in additions to your character that give you powers without having to use a tool and without having a limited amount of time. This needs to be done at an ability altar and takes a large amount of power to complete each one. Simply select the ability that you want, right-click on the altar with your wand, and provide it with its required colors. Ta-da! Anyways, that's the basics of Chromaticraft, and I hope it was interesting yet engaging, and I hope that you take it upon yourself to go download the mod. There's quite a lot I didn't touch upon, like Ender TNT, the inventory warp, the protection beacon, and so on. I hope you all enjoyed watching. Bye!